Many Western countries gained great power by colonizing other countries. As Japan came to know of this kind of strategy, Japan decided to colonize Joseon too. The way Japan colonized Joseon was by creating many treaties that would take away our country's rights and freedom. Starting from the Kangado Island Treaty of 1810, Japan started to create treaties with our countries that would take away our country's rights and freedom. At first, the people of Joseon didn't have a clear idea of what these kinds of treaties were, so we made a lot of treaties that would put us at a disadvantage. However, as people started to realize that these kinds of treaties would take away our rights and freedoms, they started to resist against Japan's rule. One of the ways our ancestors resisted against Japan's rule was by holding movements. These movements could be violent or non-violent, but they were both ways of showing that Joseon was an independent country, and it was a way of resisting against Japan to get back our country's freedom and rights. One of the biggest nonviolent movements in our history is the March 1st movement. The March 1st movement was held in 1919 on the day of March 1st. The reason this day was important was because the day of March 1st was the day Emperor Gojoseon's funeral was held. Emperor Gojoseon was rumored to have been assassinated by Japan, so it fueled our country's citizens even more. The March 1st movement was inspired by the Paris Peace Conference. It was held to show that the Japan-Korean Treaty of 1810 was invalid, and therefore our country is an independent country. This movement was held all over the country, and over 2 million people participated on this movement. However, because of this movement, Japan started to use violence against our nonviolent protesters, and after this movement, Japan started to use violence in ruling over Joseon. Even though we suffered so much loss. Perhaps because we suffered so much loss, the people of our country started to resist against Japan even more, and this March 1st movement became a movement which awakened the national conscience in the citizens of our country. In this way, the March 1st movement is a very important day in our country, and therefore, currently the day of March 1st is a national holiday in our country. On this day, the people of our country remember and thank our ancestors who gave so much effort to gain back our country's rights and freedom of our country.
Hello, my name is Park Seorin, and today I am going to tell you about the March 1st movement. March 1st movement started after World War I ended. After the World War I ended, England and France, which won the World War, wanted to have the colonies of the lost colonies because they had won the World War. However, Lenin, who is the person who established the Soviet Union, made a speech that the colonies should decide themselves about what they would do. So many of the colonies became independent. And people of Joseon saw that speech, watched that speech, and then they decided that they would have to have a declaration of independence themselves. In this kind of situation, it was very difficult to get together to write a declaration of independence. So people got together by religious activities. Therefore, the leaders of the March 1st movement were religious leaders. There were 33 religious leaders, and they decided to come together at Pagoda Park and declare the independence of Joseon. So many people gathered together in Pagoda Park, but none of the 33 religious leaders came. This is because the 33 leaders went to a place called Taewagan, and they declared the independence by themselves because they thought that people could get violent if they came to Pagoda Park, because a lot of people were there, so it could get violent. So when the people were waiting at Pagoda Park, but none of them came, so people were very confused. But then a student came out and he read the Declaration of Independence. So all the people stood up and cried independence of Joseon, and that is the start of the March 1st movement. This is actually called the March 1st movement, but this is called the March 1st movement, but it only started at March 1st because the religious leaders thought it was not good to have this movement at the day of Emperor Gojong's funeral. But it only started at March 1st, and it went on and on through the whole country. At the March 1st movement, people tried to do this movement peacefully, but Japanese people didn't think so, and they used weapons, and lots of people people became imprisoned. But this was the start of Joseon trying to be independent from Japan. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Choa, and today I will talk about behind the stories of March 1st Independence Movement. As you know, March 1st Independence Movement have happened to shout out freedom from Japan. So I will just go straight into the behind stories. Did you know that March 1st Independence Movement was actually planned on March 3rd? However, Britain disagreed because it was the date when King Gojong passed away. After that, they chose to do it on March 2nd, but it was denied because it was the date when people worship. Eventually, the date was chosen on March 1st. Also, when people wrote the declaration, after a discussion, they chose to write things which are future-orientated. After the declaration was made, the Yongsan monk have read it and felt that it doesn't have a clear goal and direction they want to go. So, just before the independence movement started, that declaration was changed after 3 goals were added. Besides this, the Yongsan monk also helped them choose the spot to declare to. Lastly, one of the reasons why March 1st declaration was started was because of February 8th Independent Declaration. February 8th Independent Declaration was started in Japan, Tokyo, by the foreign students at Japan. Like this, including March 1st Independent Declaration, many freedom fighters have worked hard and tried their best for Koreans' freedom and Korea's independence. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Shin Jung-in, who will continue the introduction of the church family. Talking of the March 3rd movement, I remember about one sad event that was happened because of that independent movement. It is called the genocide in the church family. I'm going to tell you about this sad event now. You will know that there was a dark period of Korea, which was the Japanese colonization. People were angry at the Japanese and wanted them to go away. So our people did the March 1st movement. Hong Myeon-ok, who knew how to read at the time, knew there was an independence movement. He knew the world resistance after 10 years Japanese colonization began. He got some people to do the independence movement, and more people joined it. The Japanese police saw the situation and tried to stop it by force. They killed a lot of people and shot Hong Myeon-ok, who seemed to be the starter and the leader. The citizen was angry at them, so they killed one police. Because of this murder, the Japanese soldiers thought that it was a civil war in the country. So, in 1919, April 15th, the soldiers called the people of the town in the church family and locked the door. This is the picture of that event. They shot them with no mercy and put fire on the church. The Japanese military tried to find the starter of the movement and went to the next town called Kojuri. However, they only killed innocent families, and it is called the Big Murder of Kojuri. The two murders has the connection of cause and effect. They have the same cause, which is the independent movement, and each were the effects. According to these sad events, we can know that this church we are introducing has a sad history. It is a meaningful place where our country's people desperately wanted the independence of Korea. The part I'm going to introduce you is finished now, and let's move on to the next speaker who will tell you about the use of the church Chamli.
Hello, my name is Rosie, who will tell you about Chamli Memorial Hall for the Death of Korea. That building that you can see beside me is Chamli Memorial Hall for the Death of Korea. This memorial hall was built to commemorate people who died innocent. During Japanese invasion, the people of Chamli only staged the March 1st independence movement to oppose Japan's repressive rule. But Japanese who didn't like that situation killed the people and tortured them. In addition, they called the people to apologize and locked them up in the church, which named Chamli Church, to mass murder. Even fired the dead body to destroy the evidence. And they said that was just accident. So people built Chamli Memorial Hall for the Death of Korea to do not forget and remember what Japanese did. When you enter Chamli Memorial Hall for the Death of Korea, you can see various kind of relic of people of Chamli. First, you can see video that show what happened in Chamli in 1919. It shows us about atrocity, and when you get out the video room, you can go to the first exhibition hall. In the first exhibition hall, the background and the progress of the March 1st independence movement, which took place in Hwasong area in 1919, and the April 15 massacre of Chamli by Japanese military police, and the testimony of the brave family and the subsequent record are displayed on the display of photographic panel, relic, and interview videos. Next, the first exhibition hall, there are the second exhibition hall also. Under the theme of the massacre unending history, genocide, which has been performed in various countries, is displayed there. Genocide here means an act carried out with the intention of destroying the people, race, ethnicity, and religious group in whole or in part. You can also see the material containing the Chamli massacre and the picture of An Jong-lak, who was excavated at the time when everything disappeared due to burning of the village. And if you go outside, you can see a big tomb. The tomb is for Chamli people. Originally, Japanese buried them in the ground of cemetery. But fortunately, that body could come back original place by help of people who were witness of incident. Instead of those things, you can see many monuments which honor our ancestors who fought against injustice with justice. The Chamli Memorial Hall for the Death of Korea informs viewers of the national spirit of Korea and makes us think a lot. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Kim Min-hyuk and my English name is Kevin. And I will now introduce about the places that will help you keep touring. It's the Yungneung and Gyeonneung, and we also call it as Yunggeonneung, calling two at once. First, I will talk about the Yungneung. It was made at 1762 when Prince Hado died inside the rice chest. So they made a grave of him. It was named Sunmyo. However, after Prince Hado's son Jeongjo became the next king, he changed the name 2 times. And finally, after the declare of Daehan Empire, they could make it to nowadays name, Yungneung. And do you know what is the Neung is? Neung is the name that is for the king's grave, king's tomb. Like this, we can know that King Jeongjo worked so hard to make people remember his father. And second is Gyeonneung. Gyeonneung is royal tomb of the King Jeongjo and his wife. When King Jeongjo passed away in 1800, he built a tomb on the eastern hill of Yungneung. His father, Prince Hado, however, there was a rumor that the site was unlucky after the king after King Jeongjo ascended the throne. And the Queen Kim passed away in 1821, and they were buried together. After that, the tomb was moved to the western hill of Yungneung. And also, there is a Yongjusa, the temple. There is a story about King Jeongjo, and I will talk about it. One day, the king heard the learns from the Buddhist monk, and it was in Buddhism, parents' grace is divided to 10 kinds. After hearing all of it, King Jeongjo decided to build a temple for his father and moved to tomb to Yongjusa temple. And he frequently visited the Yongjusa temple. One early summer day, King Jeongjo, who was visiting the tomb, saw that the pine trees in front of the tomb was sickening because there are so many bugs. He said, "Oh God, how can a pine tree leaf be nibbled in front of the king father's tomb as a caterpillar living in my land? It's heartbreaking for the king father to die. But why should the caterpillar bother me?" The king took a caterpillar and bit it with his teeth. Since then, caterpillars have disappeared in this area. And I was very pleased to meet you, and thank you for listening to my explanation.
Hello everyone, my name is Sungji Lee, and today I would like to talk about some places to visit near the March 1st Movement Museum. Actually, this place is not a museum, it's where the March 1st movement people were buried. So, this is in Seoul, and it is in Hwasong, not Mars. This is in Hwasong, and also the famous places in Hwasong are a museum which has history, and also there is a place where you can see a lot of plants. Finally, you can also go and see, because Hwasong was before where the king also made his palace and also used some technical things. So there are a lot of places to visit, and actually if you want to visit a lot of places, there is first Seoul Wave Art Center. You can also look at arts, and also here is the Suwon Hwasong, which is in 18th century, and it has 48 kinds of walls to protect the place. And also, if you see, there is also Gwangmyeong Cave, which is in the cave, and you can also see, and it's also cool, so I really recommend it. In this hot summer, you can go here and learn your stress out. Finally, there is in Hwasong Hinggung, which is you walk around the Hwasong Road, and also you see the historical things, what happened before, and also many people say that it's a little bit tired, but it's a lot in your memories. So I really recommend these places so you can go. But actually, the best place is the museum where the March 1st movement people were buried in. You can go here and think about how we are able to live in this world, not colonized by Japan, how we could start the first base of the movement and independence. So I really recommend it. The first